The topic of historical accuracy in video games has always been interesting to me. It seems that the gaming community, or I suppose small enclaves of it, only like to apply it in certain circumstances. In this video, I'm going to go over my thoughts on the importance of historical accuracy in games that I've played, specifically World War II games, as I've played a fair few of them, and talk about how community reception varies. My first experience with a World War II game was actually incredibly inaccurate. My first World War II game ever was Call of Duty Finest Hour on my PS2 when I was like 7. If you've played it, you may know what I'm talking about. The opening scene in the game, which is great, takes place during the Battle of Stalingrad, perhaps the most famous battle on the Eastern Front. You row across the Volga River in what is actually a pretty nice set piece for a game from 2004. And once you get to the dock, you're handed ammo, and not a rifle, which is quite similar to a famous movie that Call of Duty loves to pull from. This is inaccurate. While Stalingrad was brutal and bloody for all those involved, it never got to the point that the Soviet High Command decided the best thing to do would be to send soldiers into combat without a rifle. But here's the thing. Despite the inaccuracy, nobody really cared. I mean, I care a little. It does perpetuate one of the common fascist apologist myths about the endless Russian horde, but it's a damn cool set piece. There's going to be historical inaccuracies in games. There just is. A hyper-realistic World War II shooter wouldn't really be that fun, or popular. Like Battlefield 1, a game that I love. A lot of the weapons in that game are either experimental or saw limited use in World War I, and it made for a better game. The topic of historical accuracy in gaming for me came to a head around Battlefield 5, a game that I admittedly own but never really played a lot of outside of a few war stories which I enjoyed. If you were around at this time, you know what I mean. The era from 2016 to 2018 or so in gaming was interesting, to say the least. When the trailer for Battlefield 5 dropped, people were quick to make fun of it, which is common these days for any of the big shooter releases. But it got pretty heated. There were two reasons that people were making fun of the game. The ridiculous character customization options and women. It is women. On the first point, I do kind of laugh. It's quite ridiculous to imagine someone running around in 1940 with a literal bionic arm, so I could see where the jokes came from. But when it comes from including women in the game, I just can't see why people care. The two big shooter franchises, Battlefield and Call of Duty, don't sell themselves as historically accurate game franchises, and they never really have. If a girl wanted to play Battlefield 5 and create herself to use in multiplayer, why the fuck should I, or anyone, care? People don't really care when someone 360 no-scopes you from 3 miles away with the Springfield rifle. So why do people care that the virtual person shooting weapons at them is a woman? This, to me, is a sad undertone of the gaming community. Not as a whole. Not at all as a whole. It's a vocal minority. It's the same people that didn't like The Last of Us 2 because they didn't realize that a woman can be muscular. And if you disagree with me on that point, please feel free to tell me about it in the comments. Alright, I'm going to move past that controversial biohazard of a topic and talk a bit about my favorite World War II shooter ever, Call of Duty 5, World at War. This isn't a particularly accurate game either. There's a great video by History Gaming Reviewed that nitpicks the hell out of the game. Spoiler, there's a lot wrong with it, and yet it's still acclaimed by critics and the fan base alike, its story mode especially. But one of the things that I think this game does particularly well is use the history to tell a good story over 2 theaters of the war. I'm gonna make a whole video about each of these campaigns one day, but it uses real battles from World War II and molds them to make them a fun and pretty damn immersive experience. It's a very gritty game, and while still arcadey, I had no desire to go off and fight in badass battles after playing this game, even as a kid when I first played it. It really shows you the true horrors of war. See, I bring up this game because it doesn't need to be accurate to be fun, and being accurate would have been to its detriment. But nobody really cares. It's fun, it's cool, it's badass, and I, and many others, love it. Alt history can be very fun. Look at games like Hearts of Iron 4, a game where my addiction comes and goes. It's very good, and if you get hooked, you'll spend hours upon hours playing it for like a month. But the most fun thing about that game once you get past the learning stage are all the alt history paths you can take. Want to bring the Kaiser or the Tsar back? You can, assuming you cough up the money for DLC. Want to take over the world as Communist USA? Sure. Go right ahead. You can even spark a second civil war. Do you want to win as Germany? Firstly, why would you want to do that? Secondly, yeah, you can. And they're actually one of the few countries that are really fun to play, because they can get very overpowered. Want to unify the Balkan region? You can, but I mean, that's probably the most historically inaccurate thing that I've talked about in this video. But the point is, alt history can be really goddamn fun. If you play Hoi 4, tell me, how often do you go down the normal historical route? I know for a fact that I rarely do outside of my first try at playing a nation. I'd argue that for most countries, the alt history paths are more fun, assuming they have good national focuses. But look, I'm gonna go back to it one more time. To the few of you that actually played a lot of Battlefield 5, did you actually care that a woman could create a character to look like her? Did it take away from your experience in the heat of the moment? If so, why? This video was just me vomiting my thoughts out on a page. The script took me about a month to actually write because it's something that's always in the back of my mind. Please, please, please continue this discussion nicely and kindly in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see some more, please like and subscribe. Thank you.